I have a juicy topic for you today. And by juicy, I mean it's going to be very interesting if you are dealing with a micromanaging manager, particularly if you are mid-career. Maybe you're 50 plus, a Gen Xer. You are certainly capable of supervising yourself in the daily activities, and yet you find your manager is literally sitting on your shoulder, peering over to look at every detail about how you're getting your work done. You're going to want to join in because I am going to share in today's video some things that we can do to handle this situation. Hi, I'm Jeanette, the Northbound Coach. I'm so glad that you've joined me here today. So I am continuing a series that I have been looking at from week to week, these 5 different hacks that we can apply to make our existing roles so much better. So if you are thinking about some sort of change but really don't want to leave your current situation, there are some things that we can do in these various hack categories that can improve matters and really make a world of difference. And this is one of those hack categories. So it's really the concept of how do we get more autonomy in our role? So more ability to make our own decisions about how we're getting our work done. And the epitome of not having autonomy is when we have the micromanaging manager. And so if we can handle the micromanaging manager and make things better, even if we can't cure the micromanaging manager, if we can actually just bring it down a notch, things will feel better. And this will be a hack that will be helpful to you. So how do we go about doing that? Well, what I have noticed in my experience is that the micromanaging manager doesn't just choose to be micromanaging in that way. It's driven by some very real emotions. And I think the predominant emotion or the predominant drive that I have noticed is fear. The micromanaging manager is fearful about, blame, being held responsible, having things come out in a work product that they ultimately have responsibility for that will fall below standards and expectations that the manager is being held accountable to or feels like they are being held accountable to. So they might have irrational fears when it comes to the micromanaging, but generally they are being driven relentlessly by this fear of coming up short. And that is driving their behavior to check and double check and triple check and, just essentially not leave you alone in how you're going about doing your work. Now, we do know that in the bigger picture, they're actually just making things worse, right? If you could just be left alone, your work product would be so much more creative and interesting. But in the fear, they're just not able to see through that. So the first real big change that you can make to make things better is to look at what is the fear that is driving your manager? What are they really trying to avoid? Perhaps you're in a culture that is very perfectionistic. So literally the work product that comes out of your area needs to have every I dotted, T crossed, perfectly. Well, then your manager is going to be very interested in all of those details. Now, if there are other fears that are driving the manager, then there might be something else that you need to address. But the point here is if you can get to the key of really what is driving the micromanaging manager's behavior, it's going to be fear-based about something. So if you can learn what that something is, then you can target your response so that you can help to alleviate fears in that particular area. So it's not so widely addressing all sorts of things, but it's very targeted. And when you go about targeting that, you can try doing some things that make it a little bit easier for you in the big picture, such as think about when you start a project or a different line of work, involve your manager very early in that process. So if you bring them in when you're thinking about what's our approach to this project, what's the framework we're going to use, what's our project management plan, then your manager has a chance to give input at a really foundational stage, which can help to alleviate their concern that I'm not sure where this project is going to go. So if you've got the basic framework with the, in conjunction with the manager, that's going to bring that dial down a bit on the fear level because, okay, in general, this is going to be following a plan that helps to bring down the fear level for the manager. Another thing that you can do is to build in an approach where you automate as best you can the check-in, the communication, the keeping the manager up-to-date processes. So perhaps you use things like creating a structure where at any time at the manager's own convenience, they can, have view into documents that give a status on it. So you don't necessarily have to be distracted from the core of the work that you're doing to answer those questions. There's just a way for the manager to get that information. Perhaps you structure regular check-ins that are at your convenience, but on a regular basis. So instead of, needing to check in ad hoc during the day when, a fear comes in for the manager, what are you doing in this particular area? Okay, we have a regular check-in process. It's going to be, once a week. And at that time, all of the things that need manager review and approval on, they're going to be brought forth in an organized way. All of these kind of organized structures help the manager to relax the grip a little bit on feeling so fearful of things going off track. So if there's an approval process, if there's a regular check-in time, if the manager has weighed in on the basic framework about how you're going about things, these things are all going to go a long way toward bringing the temperature down on the micromanaging and increasing that feeling of autonomy, which will make you feel better about your work. Now, if you've heard all of that and you've thought, I've tried these things, none of this is working, that may be a sign that there's a bigger problem. And in this particular, instance of a micromanaging manager, there are times where you're just not going to be able to make that change. And what that means is something still needs to change. And it's probably you needing to make a change in your circumstances and look at, where else you might go. Because what we do know is that as a mid-career professional with your expertise and your years of experience, you don't need to spend it being supervised as if you are somebody who's just starting out in your career, because you're not. You're at a different stage and you deserve to have that autonomy. If you want to strategize a bit around this, I'm happy to offer some free time together. I'll put the link to a scheduling calendar in the description box. If you just want to, schedule a bit of free time with me, I'm happy to brainstorm with you around what you might do. Thanks for joining me today. I will be back in a few days with another video. And until then, do take care.